Amazing!
This podcast is sponsored by Velo Yellow, providing bike transport to events across Europe. Supported also by Fear the Turtle Triathlon Coaching, Conway Cycles and Vitalize Omagh. Contact details available in the episode description.
You're all very welcome to episode 77, and today I am joined by Paulo Ross. Paulo, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Mickey. Feel like a bit of imposter syndrome here on a triathlete podcast. I've only done a couple, but...
Well, that's the two of us that are feeling a bit imposter syndrome then, because I'm interviewing a guy who's a professional presenter on the radio. So you're normally the one asking the questions. So we're doing a bit of role reversal today, but I'm sure between the two of us, we'll get through it okay. Paulo, most people will know you obviously from the radio and that voice that helps people get to their jobs and get to their work in the mornings and whatnot. And behind the scenes, you have been chipping away. And everybody is now aware, of course, that you've recently completed the Ironman in Austria. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you onto the podcast to have a look at that event and how you got on and how you got through it. But more importantly, what was life like for Paulo before this Ironman adventure? So I'm going to take you right back to the very start. Paulo, if you're comfortable and happy to chat about it, talk us through growing up and your childhood and things like that. Were you always the sporty guy, or were you the wee class nerd?
Yeah, I grew up in a little small fishing village in County Down called Ardglass, and I wasn't sporty at all growing up. I was encouraged to play sports and, get out there onto the Gaelic field and play some five-a-side football, youth club, but I was very much forced to play sports against my will. It was only really after university when I sort of enjoyed sports and taking part and being involved. So yeah, when I first sort of got into sports, it was through CrossFit probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I enjoyed the whole sort of group training aspect of it, where you had an appointment to be somewhere, it was 12:30 class, you maybe worked out with 10 people, and you had the opportunity to do some sort of team and group WODs and stuff, the community aspect of it. But in school, no, I was the guy with the note to say he forgot his PE gear, and I think I chose IT over PE for GCSE. But like in hindsight now, if I could go back and do it all again with this confidence as a 36-year-old, I'd love to have a second crack at it. I probably would have even chosen a different course at university and done something like sports science instead of geography.
You really have taken to the sports world and the endurance world very, very well. I mean, anybody that follows you on Instagram will see all these videos and reels and stuff. If you're either out walking, you're hill walking, you're exploring the coast, you're out on the paddleboard, you're doing all these things. Talk me through that sort of early part of your fitness journey. Whenever you first decided to go to CrossFit, were you really out of shape just before you decided to make that move, or was that a very easy transition for you?
So I care for my mum. Mum has, thankfully she's through the recovery phase of it now, but she has some mental health needs. And I cared for her the best part of 10 years. And in that time, I took to a bit of like hill walk before CrossFit. So came in love with just hiking in the mornings, the weekend, and sort of getting away from daily life and switching off. So I would have probably started my sort of exercise journey with just even hiking in the mornings all those years ago, not realizing sort of what type of base, aerobic base, even just hill walking was building. There would have been a time I would have been up maybe 2 or 3 times in a weekend, and for years I just got so much from hiking in the mornings and loved it. And then I sort of went on to CrossFit from there, and even found that the base of hill walking transferred into CrossFit quite well.
It's a valid point, and it's worthwhile just reflecting on it just for a wee second, just the importance of getting out, going for a walk, And it can be something as simple as that, that has, for you, worked very, very well, giving you an opportunity for a time out, a bit of peace and quiet, and to de-stress and just to let things sort of get out of your system as such. And it became a catalyst for something that turned into a guy completing a full distance Ironman triathlon. So from humble initial first steps up a hill to one of the most challenging triathlons in the world. It's unreal just how it can all work out.
I think one of probably the first ever endurance things I ever participated in was the Mourne 7 sevens. After about 2 summers of hill walking, I thought, I'll give this a go. 7 peaks in a day, how hard can it be? Oh, it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. That was just the weather. Never mind actually having to walk the 7 peaks and the mosquito bites. Or sorry, the midgie bites going over Sleeve Dawn.
So there's actually a phenomenal amount of hiking and elevation involved in the Seven Peaks. And for anybody that doesn't know the Seven Peaks, we have spoken to athletes in the past that have talked about it on this podcast, but it really is a challenge. It's a very, very physical challenge, but it's also a mental challenge as well. And as you've already highlighted, the weather here, isn't always in your favor. Talk us through the event as that panned out for you that day.
So we'd done a few training in the weeks leading up to it. You sort of do maybe Donard, and then you combine with Comada and Donard be a brick climb with it.
Oh, it
'Cause you
would be.
do.
It sounds like a disgusting brick workout to me, but I guess it is. Yeah.
Donard, Comada, then maybe towards the latter stages of that training, you would maybe venture across to Steve Burna, back by the Brandy Pad, and maybe cover 5-6 hours of hiking just to condition your body, condition your feet, condition your muscles to being out and walking for that extensive period of time. But yeah, on the day, I'll never forget it. It was as much of a challenge as the Ironman, I'll be honest. I could barely walk back down to Donald Car Park after the 7 sevens. I just remember how hard it was to literally just get one foot in front of another. And I think it took me in the guts of, let's see, 12 to 14 hours perhaps. But I always remember that day because there was a marathon on, the 7 sevens Mournway Marathon, and there were guys going past us running. And I thought, I can barely walk this. And you guys are running it. Fair play.
There's some absolute beasts out there, isn't it? Whenever you get involved in sports and you're on the circuits and going around all these different races, you are blown away by the athleticism. I often remember I did the half marathon in Tullymore Forest, which is it's a beautiful, beautiful place to be in. Spectacular scenery, but absolutely insane inclines and elevation. And there's these guys just running up past you like springboks from a David Attenborough. Like, it's absolutely phenomenal.
It's a
Um,
different level of fitness altogether. Yeah.
so that fitness then translated from the walking, the hills, into CrossFit, and that gave you a real sound base level of fitness, and it gave you enough confidence, self-belief within yourself to tackle something which is actually blows my mind whenever I think about it. I'm talking, of course, about the paddleboarding adventure that you had a few years back. Remind us what that was, the cause behind it, and talk us through that whole experience, because this is absolutely nuts.
Yeah, so in 2022, well, back to 2020, COVID came, which we all remember, and you weren't allowed to do quite a lot of things. There was an extensive list of, you can't go to the Mourns, you can't go and do 5K in a park more than once a day or whatever it was at the time. So actually on the list of things you were allowed to do was paddleboard. So I thought, okay, I mean, none of it makes sense, but let's go out and buy a paddleboard. I love outside. I love spending time outside. How can I get outside more when we're being told to stay indoors? Paddleboarding allowed. So yeah, I invested in a paddleboard and kind of got the same sort of escapism paddleboarding as what I would have hiking the Mourns. It's that escape of just being like distant. When you're out on the paddleboard and you're doing Bangor to Helens Bay, your phone is in your pocket. You can't get it out. You're unreachable. You're uncontactable, and everything just moves at a bit of a slower pace, like hiking. I really love it. I think water brings its own type of therapy. To me, like I'd much rather walk or be surrounded by coastline than do inland walking. And so yeah, the paddleboarding adventures started. I think it was the summer of 2021. We got paddleboards, and then a year later, I'd thought. I think we were cold water dipping at the time too, because that was on the allowed list. So we got into cold water dipping, and I'd seen Scotland in the background, but we used to dip at Bangor, a place called Skippingstone in Bangor. So great views of Scotland on a clear day. And I could see Scotland. And I said to my friend who worked for the RNLI at the time, how far is that? He says, well, what you're looking at, Paolo, is Port Patrick. It's about, 20 some odd mile. Right. I'm like, could you paddleboard it? Well, people swim it. I was thinking just the idea started to rack up in my head. I was like, how long would it take to paddleboard? If we can get to Helen's Bay and back, I mean, that's quarter of the way to Scotland. So we just do that 4 times. And he goes, yeah, I mean, you've currents, you've tides, you've swell to deal with. There's a lot more things to factor in than just that, Paulo. But I kept holding on to this hope that it was sort of doable. So yeah, I made it happen eventually through my work, Kill FM, with the Breakfast Show guys, Pete and Rebecca. We teamed up with Cash for Kids. We raised like £20,000, and we had an idea of paddleboarding from Scotland back home to Northern Ireland one June day in 2022, which was just incredible. And there were everything that day I'll take with me, and I'll remember for the rest of my life. At one point coming back in, just off the coast of Northern Ireland, there were a couple of whales underneath us, underneath the board. And it's just phenomenal. At one point you're having your lunch in the middle of the Irish Sea, and you're thinking, well, Northern Ireland's 12 miles that way, Scotland's 12 miles that way. This is, when people talk about the middle of the Irish Sea, this is the middle of the Irish Sea.
Yeah.
And just having a few moments to take that in, it was surreal.
It's reminds me of a time whenever I trained for my first Ironman, finding myself sitting in the forecourt of a garage down in Armagh, eating a sausage bap at about 8:30 in the morning, thinking, this is bonkers. This Sunday morning, like I'm miles and miles and miles away from home in the middle of nowhere. But to be sitting having a ham sandwich in the middle of the Irish Sea, sitting on a paddleboard with wheels underneath you and everything else, absolutely class. You must have been very lucky with the weather then on that particular day, were you?
Yeah, so we obviously only could do it in certain weather conditions. We had a pilot boat, a guy called Brian Maharg from Bangor, who's experienced taking swimmers across. So there was a weather window we were waiting for, and obviously we got the weather window, but I think we had to wait about a month for it. So there was one day the night before we got a text on our phones. It was like, right, tomorrow is the day. We're like, tomorrow? What? Oh yeah, you only have half a day of weather, by the way. We're like, wow, okay, so we need to do this quick. It took us a bit longer than expected. I think close to, we set off from Port Patrick at 8 a.m. in the morning, and having that view of Northern Ireland from Scotland, like you can see the Mourne Mountains as clear as day from Port Patrick, and you're thinking, wow, we're in another country here. We're crossing to paddle to Northern Ireland. But yeah, I think we set off at 8 a.m. and we got into Bangor at 5 or 6 p.m. But we were originally supposed to go to Donegal, but the way the tides and the currents worked out, we actually had to do the extra 4 or 5 miles to Bangor, because Donegal would have been harder to get into at that time of day. So lots of like different variables and factors on the day. But it wasn't kind to us. By the end of the paddle, it was quite choppy, and the swell was up, and we were battling a headwind as well. Thankfully we pushed through and got it done. We raised some great money for Cash for Kids as well.
Absolutely amazing. And for other people that maybe aren't aware, the influence of the tide and the weather plays a huge role whenever you're crossing a channel. And there's no such thing as a straight line. Like, I mean, if you were to map that on Strava, you've got a big curve of a thing, where the tide's pushing you out one way and then pulling you in the other way. And the other thing as well is paddleboarding looks easy. It looks so graceful. You're just standing there and you're just moving your arms. How hard could it be? But whenever you think about it, like if you're standing on that board, you're on a tightrope, your core, every single muscle in your body is working really, really hard just to maintain that upright position. So physically, it must have taken its toll on you.
Yeah, it was. I think when the headwind struck. You mentioned it's never a straight line across. You are kind of assisted, and the way out, the idea is you leave with the tide pulling you out of Scotland. so that you time your arrival into Northern Ireland with the incoming tide then pushing back in. But it didn't feel like we were getting to push it all that day. It was headwind, headwind, headwind. But you're all right, even standing on a paddleboard. Now we did do most of it. Disclaimer: if you go back and watch the footage, we did it on our knees for most of the time. The swell was very, very high. But yeah, even just it's great for those like even stabilizing muscles. If you're a runner and you're given these boring exercises to do as a physio, stand on a ball, and the paddleboard is just like it takes so much out of you just to stand on it. That's before you even start to paddle. Everything's engaged.
Yeah, it's a full body workout. That give you a flavor of endurance on a different level, on a different scape, and there was a huge element of water involved in that now. So I'm beginning to start putting some things together here now. So, you have your hiking and you're walking and you're nearly running. You're surrounded by water. There's elements of triathlon beginning to perhaps creep into the picture. But whenever you and I did your timeline, one of the things that stood out too was the influence that your father had on you, because your dad does a bit of triathlon too, and he has certainly been a bit of an inspiration, to say the least.
Yeah, so Dad has done, I think, 2 Ironman. I think he did Mallorca, Alcudia when it was a full distance Ironman, I think 10 years ago. And he also did Cork. That was a tough day out in Youghal. Dad's always been doing a bit of triathlon, so he's been a member of Olympian Triathlon Club for years. I never got the obsession at all. I mean, he would leave on a Sunday morning. He would go out in his 6-hour bike rides with his Lycra, and I'd be saying to him, I'm like, what's the crack with that? Why won't he just come for a walk in the park with us or do something normal? Why does he need 6 hours on the bike to make himself happy? And even when Dad was off doing things like suggesting doing park runs on Christmas morning, we used to think he was mad. And when he pulled on his wetsuit to get in to do, a couple of 750-meter laps in Donegal, mad. Why would you want to do that? Mad. Just go to the swimming pool. His dad has been a bit of an inspiration. It's one of those things I said I would never get into and never do. And then when I get into my sort of mid-30s, I went to watch Dad do Ironman Nice. It was the 70.3. 2 other friends of mine from Bangor. And I was just blown away by the spectacle that was the Nice 70.3 Ironman. So for everything that morning, from the sunrise swim to the community of triathletes to the hero hour at the end, it was a full distance one running that time too. And we went to watch the midnight finishers, and it was crazy. And I came away from that weekend going, I want to have the skills to be able to do that, to be able to get into the water, swim for 45 minutes, come out, ride my bike up the mountains, and then do a half marathon after. I think like 3 crossover sets of skills I'd love to be able to have and do. I'm going to learn how to do that. And I'm going to give myself 6 months or a year to learn how to do it. And it was probably the 70.3 in Nice that started my entire triathlon journey. So I decided then, that was in June time, I think of 2024. Then I came home with the bug, and I decided to join the Try in an Olympian Triathlon Club and sign up for my first triathlon after a lot of swimming lessons, which was supposed to be the Castletown Forest Park, more in triathlon.
You mentioned there that you weren't much of a swimmer. Did you find that the swimming was the bit that was the hardest for you, or did you find the cycling quite challenging? I know for different people it's different things. People always say, oh, it's the swim. I personally always think that it's the bike. And then you have people who come from biking and they go, oh, it's the run. So what was it for you? Maybe it was all three. Maybe it was all of the above.
I think for me it was the swim. It was learning to swim as an adult. Some people are just immediately put off. Including me, myself at the very beginning. I thought I could never learn to swim as an adult again. This is going to take too much time. I'm not going to be good at it. That was like a mental barrier and always an excuse for getting into triathlon. Maybe I could breaststroke it. What's the cutoff times? Googling the cutoff times. Can you breaststroke that? Going to the pool, timing my breaststroke, realizing that I would not make the cut. Right, I'm going to have to learn front crawl. Oh, here we go. there is a barrier to that we make up in our heads, that we tell ourselves, but I could do the bike, I could do the run, but I couldn't do the swim.
Hmm.
Um, but in the reality of it, we're just all average swimmers, aren't we?
Absolutely, yeah. The
Mhm.
swim is a very technical aspect of triathlon, but it's a very important aspect, and it is often the one that people say, "Oh, I could do the rest, but I couldn't do the swim." And I guess you, like many of the previous guests, are is proof that if you actually go along and learn how to swim, you actually can. You can, and ultimately do an Ironman distance swim, which we will come to. So your first triathlon was in Castlewellan. And what's your memories of it then? As I suppose it was an introduction to triathlon.
Yeah, so we'd done, I think it was an 8 or 9 week try, which I mainly went to the swimming sessions of the Olympian Triathlon Club. Got the basics for swimming, front crawling, breathing technique, um, and then the swim was cancelled. um, it,
All that work.
all that work. Obviously, the ongoing blue green algae issue in Castlewellan Forest Park
Ah,
cancelled the swim
yes.
that year. So
Hmm.
it was a duathlon. So it was a bike and a run, but thankfully I'd already registered for the Donaghadee Peninsula Try, um, which was 3 or 4 weeks after Morn. So I got my hand at a try the duathlon for the Morn, and then we got into our first 3 discipline triathlon, which was the Donaghadee Sprint a couple of weeks later, where we got to test out our newly learned swimming skills.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Donaghadee one is in the sea.
It's a sea swim. In it was August or September at the time, possibly September, mid September.
Mhm. Uh, what was it like on the day? And I know having swam in the sea so many times, you will have known this as well from the paddleboard and stuff. That the seas can be quite unpredictable, and it can be absolutely perfect. It can be like a mirror one day, and it can be just violently choppy the next day. Was it okay on that day for you, or did you get a bit spooked, or perhaps the paddleboarding had you quietly in your comfort zone?
Oh, there was absolutely no comfort zone about it. Through paddleboarding and cold water dipping, I know how many jellyfish there are out there.
Mm.
I'm comfortably on my board, standing looking down on them. And I'm not a fan of jellyfish. So the biggest concern that day for me from the first triathlon, which was the sea swim, was not getting stung by a jellyfish. That was before even swimming it. I have a real phobia of them. And trying to get that out of my head first was the first mental battle. But then the second thing was obviously not getting kicked or punched in the head.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Dad would always be full of wisdom, and he would tell me, we did that one together actually. And he would always tell me, line up on the left hand side, Paulo, and take her wide, and you'll get more room. He didn't mention you'll swim more meters, but
Yeah.
I took that one wide that day, and it was okay. You get the panic maybe 6 or 7 minutes in, and things aren't settling. You're coming up, you're breaststroking for a bit, you're going back down, you're attempting it again, and then after about I think 10 minutes, things started to connect and flow well, and for first triathlon swim, it wasn't the worst in the world. Come out of the water fairly okay and unscathed.
It's an amazing feeling whenever you complete your first triathlon. I remember my first one was in Sligo, um, and I remember it very, very well. It just was so difficult at the time. I wasn't particularly fit at the time, probably still not that particularly fit, but it took a lot out of me. But I was absolutely amazed that I had managed to do a swim, then a cycle, and then a run. Did you find yourself reflecting on that afterwards? Just that you had achieved something special? Did it click with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything I'd done up until that point were single sports. So you're hiking, you grabbed your hiking boots, you're CrossFit, you did a CrossFit workout. You never did both in the same day. And all of a sudden you were involved in one sport with 3 different disciplines of swimming, biking, and running. And to put them all together in one day was just a different achievement in itself. Never mind the time of completion for the first triathlon. It was, wow, I've done a triathlon. These I watch triathlons in the Olympic Games. I've done a triathlon. And the timing was really secondary. It was getting it done and completing it.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. And I think once you cross the finish line of a triathlon, you think, right, okay, I want to do that again. And that's what you did. You said, right, okay, what's next? And you would set your sights on a bigger triathlon, a longer triathlon. So talk me through then your journey from that first triathlon to your first half distance Ironman.
So the Donaghadee Sea Sprint was September, and I thought, okay, I've got a whole winter here of a decision to make. Do I go back to CrossFit, or do I do some triathlon training and set myself a bigger goal for next summer? So I booked the Mallorca Valkyria 70.3 for the May time of the following year, which give me about 7 or 8 months of prep to go from a sprint triathlon to a 70.3, which I was worried about the jump up. I thought maybe it'd be better doing, an Olympic distance in between the sprint and the 70.3, but that assured me, I've dedicated 7 or 8 months to training for it. It would be fine. So I signed up for Mallorca 70.3 and uh, trained. So I carried on CrossFit until January, February, and then completely stopped CrossFit from February and concentrated on solely triathlon February, March, April, that 12-week block. But at the beginning, we were kind of running CrossFit for strength, and then the triathlon disciplines alongside it, which did get tricky towards you're trying to peak into 70.3. It's very much eggs go into one basket, which I eventually had to do.
Moving into the peak period of training, how did you manage with it? Because as the training goes up, and we'll talk about the jump from 70.3 to the full distance shortly. But there's long bikes, there's running off the bike as well, which we referred to earlier, the brick training and things like that. How did you cope with all that in the run up, and did that put your mind at ease? I know my first 70.3, I was doing these things, but I was always thinking in the back of my head, oh my God, am I ready for this? Am I doing enough? How am I going to get through it? What was it like for you?
So I took a coaching trainer's plan. I thought, I don't know how much I should be doing. I could overcook this, do too much. I could undercook this, do too little. So I took out a plan. So kind of knew in my head, okay, well, I've got a plan and I'm taking these boxes off. They're going green, 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 green. So we're on track for, if I do this plan and complete it, we'll get to the starting line of the 70.3. This is what you need to do. So I got the plan, and it was, a couple of watt bikes a week, an outdoor spin during the week, a little bit of running, zone 2 mostly, and swimming twice a week. And then brick runs towards the peak phase got introduced, but I actually found brick runs to be okay, because in CrossFit and High Rocks, we would be doing a lot of transfer between wall balls, then running, echo bike, then running, ski erg, then running. So we were already sort of kind of conditioning our body to being used to that lactic acid buildup and then running. So that's one of the probably what the only crossover from CrossFit and High Rocks into triathlon. But yeah, like it became overwhelming. It even though it was a 70.3 build, it takes up a lot of time out of your life.
It really does. The other thing, of course, when people are thinking about triathlon outside of the training and the demands of the training is, and I know what it's like because I've done an event in May, Ironman Lanzarote in May, and the dedication that you have to put in over the winter months, when it's cold and it's miserable, it's raining, it's windy. Northern Ireland isn't blessed with the most clement weather, as we all know. To be quite frank, sometimes it's absolutely bloody miserable. Um, are you the sort of guy that gets up and gets it done irrespective, or was there moments when you were saying, "Ah, frig this, I just can't be bothered," or would you be quite headstrong when it would come to things like that?
Definitely a fair weather cyclist when it comes to cycling. So I was blessed with in that training block. We had an incredibly dry spring. So from even March onwards, it barely rained for 3 months. So I was very fortunate to get the outdoor spins done in dry weather. But no, I don't like cycling in the wind and the rain. I don't do cycles in the cold. And there were no opportunities to do a sea swim before Majorca. So between Donegady Sprint in September and between Majorca in May, so we live in Northern Ireland, there was no other opportunity to get into open water. So it was very much heavily reliant upon the swimming pool. And that was always in the back of my mind going into my first 70.3. I've only ever done one triathlon sea swim, and that was a sprint. So open water, we're going from 750 meters here to 1.9 K is the next jump up.
The other thing then as well, Paulo, is that when you're standing on a beach in Majorca in May, at the start of an Ironman event, you're not going to be surrounded by 60 or 70 punters tackling a sprint. You're standing there with thousands. How many people line up for? I'm pretty sure there's is there 2,000 usually sign up for that Majorca 70.3. So it is quite the spectacle. You have the razzmatazz, the whole Ironman brand, the music is pumping. Everybody's excited. There's a great atmosphere to be had. How did you handle that? Because you'd only ever done one sprint, and here you were on what would be your second triathlon at a huge event.
I was quite worried, to be honest, and mostly about the swim. It was the one thing that you couldn't physically practice in Northern Ireland over the winter time. And even the day before, when Dad and I, did a bit of a warm up swim, in the little area that they give you in Majorca, I was looking at my watch thinking, this is saying 3 minutes for 100 meters. You're not going to make the cut. Dad assured me that on race day, it's totally different. You're getting a push with the current. You're in a raced environment. You can, stay under somebody's feet, so you can draft. And the race will pull you forward. So I honestly thought I wasn't going to make the cut that day. But it's completely overwhelming to be stood on a sprint triathlon of September and then a 70.3 in May to do an open water swim with 2,500 people. It was scary. It was scary at the time.
Special memories, I assume, of coming down that red carpet into the Ironman gantry and the music and stuff like that. There, it's a special moment.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. And one of the real things that I love about Ironman triathlons is, assuming you do high rocks, CrossFit, and marathons, it's, what was your time? What did you get? What was your time? And what I found even from back to Ironman in Nice when I first sort of dipped my toe into being interested in triathlons, there were 5 people that did the 70.3 that weekend, but at no point did anybody talk about anybody else's time. The achievement was completing it. And that was completely foreign to me from just running and different types of sports. You did the park run. What was your time? Did you do sub 20? So like that's what I find quite refreshing about triathlon from the offset.
It's one of the lovely things about triathlon, the community. We're all so different, and we're all involved in triathlon for many, many different reasons. And those of us that jump up to the big events, the full distance, people talk about their why. And we all have a why. Why do we do this? And we all keep that kind of to ourselves. There's people that like sharing that, and there's people that don't want to share that. But it means something so personal to us. And I guess we're all able to recognize within ourselves and around us and with other people that it isn't about the times, really. It's about getting after something that means something deeply personal and special to you, and fair play to getting to that finish line. And that's what I love about the triathlon community.
Even having watched Hero Hour in Nice, I wasn't going to get out of bed again. But my friend Diane at the time told me, by the end of this trip, you will get into triathlons. Come and watch Hero Hour. And she took me by the hand and we went to watch Hero Hour. And I couldn't believe there was a bigger celebration for the finishers coming last over the line than the athletes, the pro athletes, like see Charles Barkley, who won the race earlier in the day. That completely blew my mind.
Yeah, I mean, those guys that are out there just in under the cutoffs, those guys are getting value for money, but they're putting in a shift. They really are putting in a shift. But look, you finished your 70.3 in Majorca. here we are, obviously lit another wee fire under yourself. And here we are now. We're talking about Ironman Austria. So you completed Ironman Austria. Um, and up until the Ironman Austria, you had actually never done a marathon before. So talk me through how you went from 70.3 in Mallorca right up to that start line in Austria.
So towards the end of the 70.3 Mallorca summer, sort of realized, okay, we've good base fitness here. 70.3 builds up a really, really decent fitness. Let's maybe use some of that to do another first of something I've never done in my life. So I looked at what marathons were available. Amsterdam looked, timing wise, pretty good. It was October. Mallorca had finished in sort of May. So I had June, July, August, and September, a decent 4-month block to start my first ever marathon training block off the back of the 70.3. And again, I got a coach for that. And I ran 3 to 4 days a week and still kept, our fun social cycles and spins over the summer. And the coach was kind of, he was impressed. He's like, keep your cycling up because, your cycling fitness has the halo effect and it will better your running. So I don't want you coming doing a boring running plan where you're running 5 or 6 days a week. Keep your 3 to 4 runs a week. We'll keep our 2 run key sessions in, but I want you to still, swim, swim and bike all summer. It's contributing to your fitness and it's not having, you're not stimulating the same impact as what you would doing running. So we built a plan around that, 2 key running sessions a week. And then I think I did my first ever half marathon. It was the August of that summer in the Antrim Coast half marathon. Was completely just blown away by by the amount of sort of banked fitness that was inside you, that I had no idea was even there.
Yeah, this is the other side effect, isn't it, from doing triathlon? And you've already mentioned it. Because we're not focusing on one specific sport, we're not hammering those same muscles over and over and over again. So we're getting some respite. We're taking the weight off our legs whenever we're on the bike. There's no impact or very little impact on the legs. And then the swimming really acts as a recovery thing, and it allows us to keep our mobility and our agility. And we're building muscles and working our hamstrings and glutes on the bike, and it's all transferable to the running. But it clearly worked very well for you because you didn't hang about whenever you completed your first marathon. Remind us about how you got on in Amsterdam.
Yeah, so training was going very well. The first half marathon at the Antrim Coast in that August was 1:21.
Yes.
And my trainer had said to me at the time, you're on course for a sub 3 hour marathon here, Paulo. And I thought, for the first one, are you joking? He said, no. We've got the training data. We can spend the next 6 weeks pushing for this. So eventually then we run like a 30K, which was my longest run ever in the training base. The data was looking really good. And then we did the Amsterdam Marathon, which was October. And it was just phenomenal. Came in at 2:51 for my first marathon. I just couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. It was just such a great day. Everything just went absolutely perfect as it could go. And I couldn't believe the base that triathlon had built. I'd done a bit of running whenever I was a CrossFitter. I was quick at running when I was a CrossFitter, but most of it just was zone 4s. The heart rate shot straight up because you didn't have a zone 2 base doing CrossFit. And when I layered the zone 2 triathlon base on and came back to running again to do my first marathon, it was phenomenal.
You must have taken a real confidence boost from that, and bringing your own self-belief to a new level. And that must have really helped connect with the rest of the training plan then that would ultimately lead to you lining up in Austria. Talk us through the training plan and the blocks from Amsterdam right through to Austria.
So one of the reasons I do triathlons and 70.3s and Ironman is the community aspect of it, the new friendships, the bonds, experiences, and I would only ever do something like a full distance Ironman with company, with other people as a shared experience. So we'd looked at the Ironman schedule and we thought, let's pick a nice one, let's pick a scenic one. Let's choose a country that we've all never been to. So we chose Austria, Klagenfurt, and the lake swim looked look just picturesque in the promo video that they have. We love a hilly bike ride. We know all we've got in Northern Ireland's hills, so we thought let's choose a hilly bike ride, and a lovely flat run. So we booked Austria about a year out. 6 of us. I didn't know any of these 6 guys until I started cycling. There's a complete new circle of 6 best friends. It was Strava. I reached out to them last summer. Saw a few guys locally were doing some cycles, so sent one of the guys a message and said, "Listen, can I jump on to one of your rides?" And that was about a year and a half ago, and we've just become best friends since, which is great. So I had company to do my first Ironman training block with. So the 6 of us, we did our long spins together at the weekend through winter. We would often go and do our separate swims during the week and our separate watt bikes, but we had that big long group ride at the weekend to get through together. And again, I took a plan out for the Ironman, local coaching plan too, just to make sure that you're ticking the right boxes, you're doing the right things, you're not under training, you're not overtraining, and you're on course to taking these weeks off just gradually, one after one after one. So a 22-week program. And to be honest, I found the jump between 70.3 and Ironman in terms of training hours and training jump not as drastic as I thought it would be. I think when you're getting into triathlon and long distance and you're starting on a 70.3 plan, it's all very new to you. It's like, I've got to do a double session that day and I'm working out the next day too. And oh gosh, there's something in here every day. You're already sort of acclimatized to that when it comes to Ironman. It's not new to you. It's just maybe 30% more distance. But you're working out most days of the week and you're already used to that by that stage. But I enjoy it because it gives you a bit of a sense of purpose through the winter. I struggle massively with winters in Northern Ireland. Not a fan of the dark, get a bit low mood, have a little sad lamp at work. And winter training just gives me a bit of a purpose. There's stuff in the schedule that I have to tick off and get done, as opposed to wake up in January and think, oh, what am I going to do today? I had purpose and I had a plan to get me through winter for Ironman Klagenfurt.
It's something that actually I thrive on myself personally. I love the training, and I'm always, just as I refer to it, chipping away in the background. And I've got myself at a base level of fitness where I can just take a notion. Like last night, for example, me and a couple of other ones did that 21-21-21 challenge where we did 21K on the 21st of June at 2100 hours. Just took a notion, went out and ran a half marathon last night. And that's nuts. That's the level of fitness that we're now capable of, having come from positions and past experiences and a place where you couldn't run the length of yourself. As people say, you could hardly run a bath, and here you are out running the streets. So the training is brilliant for giving you that purpose, for giving you a schedule, a timetable. And then your sleeping comes in nicely because you're always knackered. What about your diet? I know I eat like an absolute horse the whole time. I just cannot be satisfied with food. Did you find that you were managing your weight okay? Because coming from CrossFit and the strength work, perhaps you'd already all that dialed in.
Far from it. So I used to be vegetarian. I was vegetarian for about 8 years while doing CrossFit, right through the early days of triathlon. And then after my first marathon, my weight just, dropped to ridiculous. I think it was touching like 59 kg at one point. And I thought, I'm going to have to change something about my diet here because I'm going to get weak. I'm going to get injured. And I needed to sort of stock up and put on. And it was finding it really hard to get the calories in. Because the first ever type of training that, you were coming back from sessions, especially with marathon training, you were looking at your watch and you'd burned, 2,200 calories in one session. And your long bike rides could be something similar. So I had to change something about my diet if I wanted to make it sustainable and more long term. So I gradually reintroduced sort of meat back in. And that helped me get a bit stronger. But yeah, even for the Ironman build, I was, I know how important it is to go into these builds, with the right nutrition dialed in, and even just with a bit of weight to lose, as opposed to going in malnourished, and weak, because you wouldn't stand a chance in a 22-week Ironman build, at the diet I had before that.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm at I think I'm 18 weeks out from my next Ironman. So you've finished yours. You're having a bit of R&R now and enjoying a bit of downtime potentially, and I'm just bracing myself for what will become quite challenging times ahead. But look, let's go back to Austria, standing at the beginning of that absolutely stunning lake from all the accounts I've ever heard about it. What was going through your mind there? Because this is a different animal now to your experience in Mallorca. It is a triathlon, but it's twice the distance.
It was scary again. All of the fears Mallorca had come back. I've got to swim. I've got to swim nearly 4K now, not just 2K. There's 3,000 people in this water with me. And on top of that, we've got to do 180 kilometers in the bike and then a full marathon after all of this. So again, the stimulus was new, and the fear was new again. But see, when I went into the swim with a bit of a plan, I thought, let's not get overwhelmed by the occasion and treat it just like a pool swim that I'd be doing in my pool training. So, 300-meter warm up, breaststroke a bit, and then main set. So I did that. I casually sort of just walked into the water, because in Valencia, I did the Valencia 70.3 in April time. My heart rate getting into the water was like 180. One of these guys thinking you're a pro, running in, spiking the heart rate, and it doesn't serve you well. Because once your heart rate's high in the water, it's very hard to get it back down again and stay calm and controlled. So came into Austria Klagenfurt with a different sort of plan and keeping everything just relaxed. And it really worked. Just a slow little walk into the water, a 300-meter sort of, 5 or 6 RPE beginning, and then breaststroke for 20 seconds, then into my main set. Just treated it just like a swimming pool set. Tried to find the feet of. I always remember reading this stat somewhere online of, if you can find somebody's feet, it's equal to 30% less effort. And I just kept thinking, 30% less effort, Paulo, where are the feet? But then
Show me the feet.
show me the feet. Triathletes don't kick straight. They kick like this. So you're looking for some feet that are controlled, that you're not going to get whacked on the side of the head with. So I'm going in search of somebody's feet to save 30% effort. And I found somebody's feet, and I sat with them the entire way in, and it blew my mind away. With my first ever full distance Ironman swim, I was expecting between a 130 and a 140, and I got a 124, I think. And it just felt lovely. But I think I put a lot of that down to just being, calm and controlled at the beginning, and not letting that heart rate and panic spike.
That's exactly the trick, isn't it? To swimming, the more relaxed you are, and the more you're able just to switch everything off and just get into a nice flow, all the better. And it's funny that whenever you're talking about looking at someone's feet underneath the water, because people think that, if you do triathlon and you've completed an Ironman, you must be a brilliant swimmer. There's like none of us are brilliant swimmers. There's very, very few people that do triathlon that have come from a swimming background. Unless you have obviously quite a few people, the likes of Lucy George Barkley being a phenomenal example. But we're all still learning. Our techniques aren't dialed in when it comes to the front crawl. And the other thing to remember is you get onto someone's feet, you're kind of keeping the fingers crossed and hoping that they're actually going in the right direction, that they're not bringing you all over the place too. So, but
There is
so
there's
you got out of the lake, safe and sound. It's always a great relief to get out of the water, and then onto the bike. Talk me through the bike, because that is a spectacular bike course out there.
Just before you get to transition on the bike in Klagenfurt, you are presented with a stunning lake, and that's for, I think, 2,500 meters at the swim, and then there's a stunning river then that you have to go up against to get to your bike transition. So it's about 900 to 1,000 meters up the river, and it's just lined with spectators at the side of the river and on the bridges, and it's phenomenal. Then you get pulled out of the river into T1, and you go and you grab your bike and you're thinking, okay, that went well. We're out of the water. We've surprised ourselves with how easy it felt, and let's get on the bike now and not do anything silly. So take the first 10 and 15k of the bike just as get the heart rate back down again from the swim and get on some solid food and some bars, and then see what the bike course brings, which was just hill after hill after hill. It's an 1,800 meter bike course with two sort of punchy climbs of 300 or 400 meters. So 290Ks of that. And it was a very hot day as well. It was 25, 26 degrees. And all these guys were going past you on sort of TT bikes and bars out the front and just sitting there on my road bike. But again, just the scenery. One of the reasons why we chose Klagenfurt, Austria, is the scenery of the Austrian Alps. Stunning. But you had hills to pay for to get those views.
Yeah, they come at a price. The views come at a price, but it is absolutely beautiful. It really, really is. And it brings us on to the run, because the run, people have talked about the run before, and it's loops, and you can share your experiences of it. But it's a lovely, intimate sort of environment around the center of the event. What was your memories of it?
It was a very hot, sunny day. I was thankful that I'd say maybe 60, 70% of the run is under cover, is under tree line, which really helps because, when we choose these endurance events, we choose the Ironman with the marathon aspect at the end. It's mostly in Europe in the summertime when it's hot. And that little bit of shade does help. It's welcome greatly during the run aspect. So it's 2 loops. It's not 4 loops, which I would find soul destroying running to the finish line 3 times before getting to run down the red carpet. And it's mostly beside the lake. The first 5k, you're going out on a lake run, looping back into the city of Klagenfurt, and doing that again twice over. So there's a real mixed change of scenery. You're getting, your first 45 minutes by the lake, then you're going down the river. The river's leading you to the city. You're going around a few of the historical sites in the city, and you're back down to the lake again. But it's also so well supported. It was just lined with supporters, with signs, banners, cowbells. It was one of the most well supported events I've ever sort of taken part in.
It's brilliant to see all the fans out there and the signage and all. I'm actually having a bit of a chuckle because I remember seeing the wee thing with your presenters, your co-presenters producing some signage for you as part of the radio show. And the one that stood out for me was face for radio, legs for cycling. So, and can I just say that was pretty cruel because, I have a face for radio. So the run is done. You're hitting that finishing chute. Do you give that bell a bit of a jingle? Talk me through your red carpet experience.
You do. The run really surprised me. It was quite difficult for my first Ironman because obviously I was coming into this run with a PB marathon of 2:51, and you're thinking, what should I do an Ironman marathon in? With a 2:51 marathon in me. So I sort of set my goal. I'm delighted to finish sub 4 hours on the run. 3:59 would be good. We can manage that. But it was the toughest thing I've ever done. Even in comparison to 70.3 run. At the 70.3 in a full, the jump up isn't just double the distance because everything just accumulates. The fatigue, everything just accumulates at a greater rate of just 2. So I got on to the run, the first 20k splendidly well, on course for a sub 4 hour Ironman marathon. And then the back end of the 20k, even though you'd fueled your 80 to 90 grams an hour, all your electrolytes were on board, you'd done everything textbook. There was just nothing that could prepare me for the last 20k off that run. And it was literally just putting one foot in front of the other and getting through it. It wasn't the physical fitness. The physical fitness is there. It was the mental fitness of being able to persevere and just keep running and not convince myself I needed to stop for a watermelon and, I'll have a wee orange at the next aid station, or what do we fancy at the next one? I'll have a Coke and we'll just sit and enjoy it. It's the mental fitness that And I think even having maybe doing a few more endurance events down the line that's when you sort of build that mental resilience for the back end of these mammoth endurance events. But straight onto the red carpet, I was so delighted to get the back end of the 20 kilometers done. One of the guys I trained with, Jack, he'd met me at the 20K mark, and he was a huge help to get me through. We both ran the last 20K together. And then we went down the red carpet together, rung the bell, and just to hear those words like "you are an Ironman," um, I was the guy that gave sick notes and wrote my own sick notes for PE, and all of a sudden you're finding yourself running down the red chute of an Ironman's magic carpet. Incredible, just like complete imposter syndrome.
It's brilliant. See, this is why I do this podcast. I'm vibing off that. And it's great for people to be able to see the guests now, because I've just recently converted to this video crack on YouTube. But the hairs in the back of my neck standing up, because I live that with you. It reminds me of my own experiences. And it's addictive. Like it's something really, really special. It's magical. You used the word magical, and what a great way to describe it. Um, and what it teaches us about ourselves too. What have you learned about yourself? Maybe it has cemented something. Maybe it has made you more aware of an aspect of you that you maybe didn't realize before. You perhaps touched on it a wee bit there with regards to the mental strength. Has it changed you in a way, or given you a different slant on who you are?
I think when people talk about the why, for Ironman, um, mine is sort of I'm really really conscious of time just passing by so quickly. I'm 36 now, and it's gone by so quickly, and every year now it just goes by in the blink of an eye. And it's trying to fill every year with a new experience, while we're young, fit, and able still to do these things. So that last year, the first marathon, this year, the first Ironman, new friendships, new bonds, new experiences, visiting new countries, more so than the time of the actual event. It's the occasion. My why is sort of to just get as much experiences into life as I can, because you just never know what's around the corner, and when around the corner is. Um, but the mental resilience that last 20K has built in Ironman Klagenfurt will always stand with me. It was so tough, and I'm a great runner, but it's a different thing. It's a different beast altogether. Um, and I think we'll have built more mental resilience from that. Um, and we'll be able to carry that through into the next one, and into anything like future marathons for sure. If I could get past that 20K in Klagenfurt after the 180K bike and the 4K swim, then we can do anything.
Uh, that's the bit for me, isn't it? And it is the tagline with Ironman, anything is possible. Um, but whenever you do that, and whenever you've come through an event that is 140.6 miles of endurance on your own steam, with swim, bike, and run, if you can do that, you can do anything. And that's the bit that I love. This notion that there's really nothing that I'm afraid of anymore. And there would have been a time when I would have been quite apprehensive. I would have been self-critical. I would have talked myself out of things, made excuses. But now I'm just okay. Let's do that. And that's something special. Is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, 100%. There isn't, a bigger sort of endurance event, well, the, in the world that you can sort of put yourself through in a day as just a normal person with a 9 to 5 job. It really is the pinnacle of fitness, both mental and physical fitness. Um, and once you've done an Ironman, once you've experienced that last 20 kilometers in the back end of an Ironman marathon, it's very few things that can get you in the sport and fitness world after that. I just always be comparing it to, well, it's not as bad as Klagenfurt.
I'm in the run up to my third event, my third full distance, which is going to be Barcelona in October, and that's for me is actually, it's quite funny that you've identified it, because people are asking me, well, you've done one or two, then you must be okay going in this one. I said, my event starts 20K into the run. That's where I want to see where I'm
Progression.
going to be. Yeah, yeah. And that's it. It's going to take me a long, long, long time. But here, Paulo, you smashed your first Ironman. I'm curious to find out what's next.
I had been looking at Ironman Barcelona for next year, but I've on a few YouTube videos, there's jellyfish involved. So, Mickey, you're gonna have to let me know
Bloody
if
jellyfish.
so Barcelona might be ruled out. Listen, I honestly don't know. I don't even know what I'm going to do with myself this week. There's such a lull after Ironman that it's hard because you've just done, you've achieved the biggest, quite possibly the biggest thing you'll ever achieve in your life when it comes to sport, health, fitness, exercise. And it's like, now it's just a Tuesday in Belfast. It's like, what should I
Yeah.
be doing with myself? Should I go to the pool today? What will we do in the pool? So but yeah, like for sure, I'd love to take some of that mental resilience, and muscle memory experience and put that into another one in a year's time. Which one will we pick? Who knows? It'll probably, I'm not going to lie, be a tough scenic one again for the experience as opposed to focusing on the times. And I'll probably choose one that, the majority of my friendship group, are up for doing as well. Cause I think these things done together just make a much bigger, better shared experience. It's memories I'll take away from Austria that's just live with me for the rest of my life, and it's been shared with other people. I think when you do amazing races and you come home and you're the only person to have done that amazing race, you're sort of talking yourself through it again. But it's really nice when there's guys from Northern Ireland who, on our next brownie stop at the Stormy Cup in Donegal, we can relive Klagenfurt together because we've all been in that race and experienced and shared that moment. Do you remember when? So yeah, I love those shared experience types of races. I am doing 70.3 Zell Say in Austria at the back end of August. But that's just for fun. That's let's go and have a bit of fun. There's a couple of my friends who are doing 70.3 for the first time, so it's sort of supporting them through it and going for the occasion. 'Cause it's supposed to be again a beautiful 70.3 at Zell Say.
Isn't it absolutely phenomenal and a bit mad to be saying something like, I'm going to be doing a 70.3, but sure, it's only for a bit of crack. Like,
I say that
and
as I've ordered a Zwift, but
I know it's
yeah.
it's nuts, but I mean that's where this carry on takes you to. It gives you that confidence that and that's the same for me. I'm doing Sheephaven 70.3 at the weekend up in Downings. Really looking forward to it. It's a brute of a half, by the way. Challenging, very challenging. But again, that's a training day. Like that's
uh,
nuts. It's nuts.
that
Will
that
we see you doing any of the local races then throughout the rest of the year, or have you any other plans locally, half marathons or
Dad
sparks?
had talked me into doing Top of the Bourne last summer in Rostrevor, and oh, it was brutal. He always says, if you can do Top of the Bourne, even though it's Olympic, you can do any 70.3 in Europe as a
Hmm.
test. So if you're thinking of doing a 70.3, go and try Top of the Bourne. If you get through Top of the Bourne, book your 70.3.
The rest is
Um,
summer.
yeah, so locally, there's not much in the calendar that sort of all the good ones come in August, which is right before Zelam Say. Um, so there's nothing really great locally sweet spot in July that would set me up for Zelam Say. Everything seems to be bunched together at the end of August and September where we're going back to Austria. But yeah, last year that Top of the Morn was again it was a different beast. It's a hell of a triathlon, a hell of a triathlon.
Well, let's keep the fingers crossed. There's no jellyfish that day.
And yeah, for yours in Barcelona as well, Mickey.
Yeah. Paulo, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey. It's been great having the chat with you, and you're a great sport. And the best of luck in everything that you do for the rest of the season.
Thank you, Mickey, and thanks for having us on the podcast.